come from far and wide to the state fairgrounds in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as we get ready for the IndyCars to return to the Milwaukee Mile. Today, the IndyCar Series returns to the historic Milwaukee Mile, one of the oldest motorsports facilities in the world. Scott Dixon played the winning tune for Team Ganassi last week in Nashville, but Team Penske has 6 wins at Milwaukee and owns the front row today. Who will write the next winning chapter at the Milwaukee Mile? The Milwaukee Indy 225 is next. It's a beautiful summer Sunday afternoon here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Argabright. Alongside me, former Indy 500 co-rookie of the year, Larry Rice. Larry, this is a great racetrack.
It sure is. Milwaukee Indy 225 time up here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 1 mile, flat oval. Very tricky, very tough. Your car has to be set up right, and the driver's got to be on top of his game. If you got those 2 things in line, you got a great chance to win here at Milwaukee.
You know, one of the guys who was on top of his game a week ago was Scott Dixon. Last week at Nashville, had a great outing. They present you a really cool Gibson guitar, Larry, and I think that motivated Scott.
Yeah, Scott Dixon did the right things at the right time. He didn't lead very many laps, but he led the one that really counted. Dan Weldon dominated, but they finished 1-2. Chip Ganassi was happy, and Scott Dixon did get that Gibson guitar.
Well, it was a great race for Target Chip Ganassi down there, and they don't typically do all that well here. They've struggled a little bit, but we can talk about that here in just a minute. You know, the other thing that will lead you here is you either seem to like this place or you don't.
Yeah, Scott Dixon and Dan Weldon both. They don't make too many bones about it. They are not real fond of the real short, tight ovals. You're always in traffic. You're always close to somebody. You're always, not bumping wheels, but boy, it's very close. And they'd rather be on the big, wide open tracks.
Well, the opposite of that, you know, when you struggle to place, you just can't seem to get it together. The opposite is dominance. And that's what we've seen here, Larry, the last couple of years from Marlboro Team Penske.
Yeah, Team Penske has been very, very good here. Rogers won 6 races up here. Last year, they dominated the race. Sam Hornish got a little impatient near the end, went under his teammate, hit him, put him in the wall. He went on to win the race. Castroneves went on to get a little upset. But in the end, they become great teammates, better friends than they were even before. But last year, Sam learned a lesson. I think Roger even said, man, you got to be a little more patient. You can't be taking out your teammate, even in a race like Milwaukee.
Well, they say the Penske team, they don't have team orders except don't take each other out. That's always the cardinal rule. You know, Larry, in qualifying here, Team Penske continued that tradition this weekend of doing very, very well because Sam Hornish went out early and qualified on the pole, and then in the late going, here comes Elio.
Yeah, Elio, neither one of them ran well on Friday. They worked on race setups. They were near the bottom of the practice sessions, and everybody's saying, what's wrong with these guys? They were so fast last year. But when it counted, they had things set up. They went back to last year's qualifying setup. They worked on it all Saturday morning, and they went out and they both ran very, very close qualifying laps.
Well, you know, they were very close. Really, many of the front runners were quite close this weekend. As I said earlier, Sam went out early and established the speed for the pole, and then Elio came out, ripped off a lap of 172.477, and that kind of stole that pole from his teammate.
He certainly did. He had a great lap. He was extremely happy. His whole crew was very happy, as a matter of fact. And Jamie Little had a chance to talk to him about what he did to get the pole here today.
Castroneves captures his third pole of the season, and get this, he breaks an IndyCar Series record for most poles of 14. Elio, take us through it. That's right. Congratulations.
God, I didn't know. Thanks for the news. I really enjoyed it. But with all these guys, with all this group, Marvel Team Penske is incredible. Believe it or not, the lap was kind of hard, even though we did the fastest lap, but it was a lot of push in turn 1 and 2. I think the wind picked up a little bit, so I'm like, oh, please, no. I know I have this car to make it happen, so we need to make it happen. And what a great group, I know Sam last year did the pole position. We're starting pretty much just swapping positions. Hopefully, the end is going to be different as well.
We talked a moment ago, Larry, about the Ganassi team struggles here. It's really amazing when you think about it, when you recount it all, how one team can have such a difficult showing at one track.
Scott Dixon, very, very hard impact, destroying the car.
Manning catches the wall.
Ryan Briscoe hit the wall at 80 lateral G's. Darren Manning is out of the car and out of the race. Bad luck continues for the Target Chip Ganassi team.
Target Ganassi team has had their struggles here at Milwaukee over the past couple of years, but this guy, reigning series champion Dan Weldon, had a top 5 finish here a year ago. Dan, what's the key to a good run at this tight 1-mile oval?
I think the key here is handling. It's very simple. It's a very difficult track. There's no banking to support the car through the corners, so you've got to have something that works mechanically. And I think obviously aerodynamically at this track, everybody runs as much wing as you can. So we'll just have to wait and see. But we're expecting good things. We're in the Fuji colors this weekend. Actually, somebody took a nice Fuji picture of me with using Fuji film. So we'll just see. I was at the ESPYs, and my good friend Jamie Little, she bought good things on me. So we'll see if that can continue. Hopefully she can give me some luck today.
Well, the great competition we've seen this year has brought about one of the tightest point races in series history. Sam Hornish holds a very narrow 5-point lead over Scott Dixon, who's just 1 point over Elio, who's just 10 points over Dan Weldon. Vitor Meira in 5th. Very tight competition indeed.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's the closest race we've had since 2001, and it looks like between Ganassi and Penske, it's going to be a tough battle to the end.
Well, I really do think, Larry, it's going to be tight all the way. Today is going to be pivotal in that point race. This is going to be a great race at what I said a minute ago is a great racetrack. Drivers here is Danica Patrick, and there's been a great deal of speculation about where she's going, what she's going to do.
Yeah, she's been all over the news. Everybody wants to know, what's Danica going to do next year? Jerry Punch asked her.
What are your priorities with this next contract?
I'm making my decisions based on who is going to give me that best chance to win. Who's going to work hard? Who's going to do research and development with the cars? Where I can learn the most?
What would you see as the advantages to taking your talents to the NASCAR stage?
Well, they're already pretty big. It's probably why this is sort of a big story. I was saying the other night, I wonder what the ratings would be the first couple of races. NASCAR's done its thing. It's huge. It's the biggest form of racing in America.
For any team, if you could take a lady out there and win a Nextel Cup race, it would be a big deal.
The dollar figures over in NASCAR and the endorsement deals and the big money that they throw around among the drivers, what impact will those kind of numbers have on the decision you're going to have to make?
It's not the right time to make a decision based on money for me. It's a time to make a decision based on how well I think I can do. And then the money will come so easy. I don't think anyone disagrees with me on that. If I win, I don't have to worry anymore. And so that's why it needs to be based on where I can win.
It would be a huge challenge for her. I think that all the type of racing that she's done growing up and that she's currently doing is just so much different than our types of cars.
Seriously, how do you think you would do in a NASCAR Busch Series or Nextel Cup Series car?
I think it's harder than anybody expects, to be honest. But I have always said that if you can drive, you can drive. And whether it's an IndyCar, a Formula One, or a NASCAR, I think you can do it.
Danica Patrick is, in my opinion, probably the lifeblood of IndyCar racing right now.
Aside from Ray Hall Letterman, who among the other teams here in the IndyCar series do you think could meet or exceed your expectations?
Well, I think the two teams that are pretty obvious, it's Penske and Ganassi. But then I think there's a lot of strength in AGR. They did very well the last couple of years. They have lots of talent there. There are a lot of options out there.
Danica, you've spoken often of your dream, even as a little girl, of someday winning the Indy 500. What impact would a move to stock car racing have on that dream?
Well, we've seen stock car drivers do IndyCar and stock car. But I really feel that if you want to win at Indy, you need to be in IndyCar. Having been there and done so well, I know what that single race can do for you in your whole life. Since one of my goals is to win that race, I don't believe that I can be anywhere else but in IndyCar.
Bottom line, what does Danica Patrick want to do?
My goals haven't changed just because my parents went and visited a race at Chicago in NASCAR. I want to race IndyCar. I really do. I want to be successful here. I came here to do well on the track, to learn, to win, to be successful. And off the track, to grow the sport. And like I said, reassess after I win the Indy 500.
Well, never mind that what's going to happen next year. Larry, last week she found herself embroiled in a little bit of a controversy with Dario Franchitti because that age-old argument about blocking kind of reared its ugly head. Let's take a look back at a week ago.
Danica especially was blocking.
I was protecting.
I really had a good chance to pass her, and that was frustrating.
There's nothing illegal about staying down the inside.
Blocking is basically impeding the progress of the car behind.
Keep it on the bottom, make it work that high side. Dario definitely cannot go high.
All I know is that in Nashville, I ran the bottom of the track because nobody could go around the outside.
Keep the pressure up there. Where's the flag? Flag!
You move off your line to impede the progress. That's the explanation for blocking.
Well, there were some allegations that were made 1 week ago at Nashville. Let's get it from both sides. Dario, you've had a week to think about the allegations about blocking. What's your position now?
I looked at the tape. I talked to Brian Barnhart a bit. He didn't actually see it. But, you know, they say in the driver's meeting, don't impede the progress of the car behind. And I felt that happened twice last weekend with Danica on two separate occasions. Danica and I talked about it straight after the race, no hard feelings. I told her I didn't appreciate that. And, you know, we had a very civil conversation. That was it. That's it, forgotten about. Hopefully it won't happen again.
You know, one of the bright lights here in the IndyCar this season has been Vitor Meira. A year ago, last fall, Panther Racing was on the edge of extinction, and he didn't have a ride. And now here he is, fifth in points, threatening to win his first race. Jack Arute earlier had a chance to talk to Vitor. Let's listen.
Well, exactly, Marty. Likeable Brazilian Vitor Meira has climbed to fifth in the point standings on the strength of 8 consecutive top 10 finishes. And Vitor, 6 career second-place finishes, 2 this year, but you've yet to go to victory lane. What's it going to take for that to happen here today?
I think it's going to take consistency. That's what Milwaukee always been known for. In the Revive USA car, I think we've been having pretty good success here over the years, and we'll see what the race holds to us.
You've never finished out of the top 10 here. Awfully good. Why are you so good at this flat 1 mile oval?
I don't know. You always have to be a little on the edge here. I mean, having no banking, and the car is sliding all the time, so I want to be on the edge here all the time, and that's how you'll have fun.
Hey, good luck today.
Thank you.
It's been a season in which we've had a lot to talk about here. We talked a moment ago about that tight point race. Every race this year has been very, very competitive. Let's take a look back thus far in 2006 at the IndyCar Series.
The IndyCar season is green. At the stripe, it is Weldon. St. Petersburg, Florida. Oh, no. Thomas Scheckter. Elliott Castroneves. Denisiwa. Oh, no, another crash. Spider-Man does it again. It's time for the 90th running of the Indianapolis 500. Stalls the car. At the stripe, Royce wins. He's an idiot. Whoa. An angry Marco Andretti. It will be Scott Dixon. You see the sparks? That's just how quick the lap. Elliott Castroneves takes the lead. Touching the wheel. Marco.
You are the man there. You are the man. Leader show. Green, green, green. Yellow, yellow. Happy birthday, Sam.
Come out of fourth, get on the gas. One last shot for Weldon. He won't do it.
You know, Larry, last year Ryan Briscoe struggled here with Team Ganassi. This year he's with Dreyer and Reinbold, but it didn't mean his struggles were over.
Well, he did struggle here earlier in this week, but he had a great run on the road courses. He was arguably the best driver they had on that team last year. I mean, he'd had some great runs, but when he came here running for Dreyer and Reinbold on Friday, they had some problems very early in the session. He was coming off of turn 4. He got very high. He tried to pinch the car. When he did, it spun around. He didn't hit the wall hard, but he hit the outside wall, then went down in and slammed into the inside wall. It demolished the car. Didn't demolish it, but it hurt it too bad for them to fix it. They pulled up their backup car, and that backup car just hasn't been very quick so far.
Well, we're going to see a lot of action here. These short ovals are always known for frantic, tight traffic racing, a lot going on. Spectators' dream, but a driver's nightmare in that it's so very, very difficult. We've got gorgeous conditions, a good field of Indy cars. Going to see a great race here. Stay with us. The IndyCar race from Milwaukee. A little bit more. And I think we're gonna hear from A.J. Foyt here in a little bit. I think he's the Grand Marshal this weekend, and the plan was that he was going to give the command. But you know, sometimes A.J. can be a little bit obstinate. We'll see. May see a stand-in.
A.J. Foyt has done a lot of crazy things, but this place has got a lot of history. Everybody, I've been coming up here since I was a little kid. It used to be the first race after the Indianapolis 500, and it's been a great run for him.
You know, this race was a dirt track for many, many years. The same basic configuration, this 1 mile oval. It was paved in 1953 for the 1954 race and has been paved ever since. And this is the kind of place you walk in and you just sort of feel the history that's here. It's just present at all times. And here in America, it's just revered as one of the most favorite places for everyone.
Now there's Marco Andretti. We're looking at his onboard camera off the back. And Marco came here last year with an Indy Pro car, practiced, crashed. His dad wasn't very happy with the whole thing, didn't even let him run the race here. But he came back this year and has done very, very well. And I'm really a little surprised after all the trouble he had here last year.
Well, this, as they say, is a very, very difficult racetrack, and so I guess the thought would be you bring a young guy here, and if they can get this figured out, that's a great start.
Well, that's exactly what Mario told him. If you can run well here, you can run well anywhere. This is the toughest racetrack you're ever going to run in IndyCar because it's very tricky. There's no single line that's going to be good all day long. You've got to kind of hunt around. You've got to make the car work. You've got to, as a driver, improve yourself and hunt for that fastest way around the racetrack every lap. And if you don't do that, you can't run fast around Milwaukee.
The big news this year has been Andretti Green struggles, but Marco did a great job in qualifying, got the inside of the second row, and his teammate Tony Kanaan alongside, so they've had a good showing.
Well, it's only, they came here about a week and a half ago. The Indy Racing League has a rule that if you have an Infinity Pro Series car, they're trying to promote that series, you can get an extra practice. So they brought their Pro Series car up here, and a couple of guys, including Marco and Franchitti, came up here and practiced, and it helped them a lot just to get those extra few laps on this racetrack and get the setup.
As you can see, those mechanics posted at the back of each car, they have that little cart there. That's an electric starter, a big, huge, strong electric starter motor that will crank over these Honda V8 engines. And as you can see, they're standing by, and the folks holding the umbrellas over the drivers to cool them just a little bit in this hot sun are now moving off the pit lane. So we're standing by here just a little bit, waiting for the command to start the engine. Should be momentarily. And we understand just a few seconds away. That's a tingling feeling for anyone who loves racing, because it's just the words you just sort of hang on. Let's go downstairs and listen. We hope for A.J. Foyt to give us those famous words.
Boys and girls, start your engines.
Well,
leave it to AJ. Nothing's ever the same with him.
It's a great shot of that, the electric starter we described a moment ago.
This is a time when this is a time when the drivers, their nerves start going away. Once those engines start, they start looking at the instruments. They start getting in the race mode a little more. The nerves kind of go away now. Up to that point, even a guy like Hornish and Castroneves and the guys that have been around for a long, long time, you still get nervous. You're still a little tense right before a race like this.
This is when, for a lot of people, though, the butterflies really just get going because they're not sitting in that race car, and now the tension really seems to peak.
Well, I think for the fans and the crews and so forth, you're right.
Well, we've got a great starting lineup here today, Larry. On the pole, as we mentioned earlier, we've got Helio Castroneves from Brazil. To the outside of him, the American from Defiance, Ohio, Sam Hornish Jr. Inside of row 2, the rookie Marco Andretti from Pennsylvania. To the outside from Brazil, Tony Kanaan.
Yeah, on row number 3, Vitor Meira, the guy that everybody thinks should have won a race by now and hasn't. But look at Jeff Simmons. He starts 6th, his best start ever in IndyCar. He did a terrific job all weekend long. And then teammates Ed Carpenter and Thomas Scheckter. Thomas Scheckter from South Africa, who's moved around in different teams, yet to have a victory here this year.
And Andretti Green back in the 5th row with Brian Herta in the 7, the California driver from Auckland, New Zealand. Scott Dixon to the outside in the 9 car. Row 6, we'll see the Englishman Dan Weldon inside of the Scotsman Dario Franchitti.
Right, and now in row number 7, Buddy Rice, along with teammate Danica Patrick. Buddy Rice has had a rough go since his Indy victory. Danica Patrick, fresh off of her best finish, tied for 4th. She finished 4th at Indy as well. And then Koksi Matsura and Jeff Bucknam. Bucknam driving for A.J. Foyt, who was the Grand Marshal here at the race this weekend.
And bringing up row 9, series veteran Scott Sharp, who continues a long starting streak here with the IndyCar Series. To the outside from Sydney, Australia, Ryan Briscoe in the 5 car with Dreyer and Reinbold. Good field, Larry.
It's a great field. Distance 362 kilometers, pit window 70 to 75 laps. Going to be probably a 3-pit stop race. Castroneves, of course, on the pole, the 4th this season. He's been very hot when it comes to running fast laps around the racetracks. Now let's take a look at the keys to the race. The real key to this race is going to be the setup the driver gets on the car and his patience. No matter what else, if you're not patient and you don't have a good setup, you're not going to win this race. You also have to be able to get through the traffic. They're going to be in traffic in probably less than 10 laps, and they're going to be in traffic the rest of the race. That's one of the things that really Sam Hornish is very good at. 24 degrees, wind is non-existent, 9 kilometers, and it's mostly sunny here today. It's not extremely hot, but a very pleasant day. One of the nicest days for fans to sit in the grandstands and watch the race that we've had in IndyCar racing all year long.
You could describe the weather today, Larry, with one word: delightful. We understand the starter has given them the furled green flag. We'll go green, expect to go green as we see the cars entering the backstretch now through turn 3. As they come off turn 4, Larry, we see the RPMs pick up. We're going to go to a green flag start. There goes very close on that pace car.
They almost ran over Johnny Rutherford, the pace car driver. They were anxious.
Boy, oh boy. You know, Johnny Rutherford would be the first guy to tell you short oval's difficult, but that's not what he had in mind.
And look at Tony Kanaan. He goes clear to the outside, 3 wide, makes the pass, and moves into 2nd place. And look at Jeff Simmons and Vitor Meira.
Yep. You know, Tony Kanaan said that he was disappointed with his qualifying run, Larry. He felt there was too much grip in his car, and he expected to be on the pole, and said he felt he would have a really good race car today.
Yeah, Hornish dropped back to 3rd on that start. You can see they're getting way wide out there, almost in the dust coming through there. And look at this, Marco's getting past Hornish. So Hornish, boy, he's, for whatever reason, he's not getting off to a very good start here.
That's Marco Andretti's in-car you saw briefly there, side by side under the flag stand, completing the 3rd lap.
Well, he's not going to intimidate Hornish, and Hornish is not going to give him that position. You know, you gotta be brave on a flat racetrack like this to run side by side with anybody. And there's what we're talking about. That black down on the bottom is just a little bit slicker in the heat of the day. Hornish, even though it looked like he had the worst position on the racetrack, that outside grooves a lot of times is the best place to be.
My guess, Larry, is that they're in the ear of Marco Andretti right now saying, hey, Marco, we're 3 or 4 laps in. Let him go. Follow him a little bit. Let's be patient. Way too early to hang it out.
Yes, exactly right. They want Marco to be around at lap 225. They're not as important what he's doing right now as it would be at lap 225.
Well, 5 laps in the books here. Pretty clean start here. You always worry about that here on this tight racetrack. Everybody's bunched together. They don't have much room, but a nice clean start.
Well, Thomas Schechter got a great start. He's up in 5th position back there, so he started back in 8th, and he got a great run right off this top. And look at Meira and Simmons. They're still battling each other as they passed each other 2 or 3 times. And
well, that was a close one.
Yeah, it certainly was. Simmons, he's a young guy. He's crashed a lot of cars this year. I'm not saying it's his fault, but he has crashed a lot of cars. So he certainly wants to have a good run. You don't want to crash. You don't want to make a mistake early in this event if you're Jeff Simmons.
And the interesting thing was for Jeff Simmons, it was widely reported, not confirmed, that there had actually been talk that he had been put on notice, that if his performance didn't improve, he would be gone. And then he comes here, and he's the fastest Ray Hall Letterman car in the qualifying.
Well, sometimes it just takes a kick in the pants, as they say, and he certainly got that. But today, this whole weekend, he has been pretty quick. And look at Vitor Meira. Once he's gotten around Jeff Simmons, he's pulling up on Thomas Schechter.
Yeah, Meira he's always ran well here. We talked about it earlier. Sometimes you just sort of get in the zone where you feel good at a place, and that's clearly a place for Vitor Meira.
Well, Vitor Meira just feels good to be out there racing. He's finished twice in 2nd place and twice in 3rd place in the last 5 races. So he's really been on a roll. He's doing very, very well. And once you get that confidence, you get confidence in your team. It really helps. Everything starts falling in place at that point.
We talked earlier about Danica Patrick, Larry. She was the fastest car in the final practice yesterday, which generally is your race setup, almost always. And she said earlier this morning that she was concerned she needed to get a really good start to keep from getting lapped. And now that's Ryan Briscoe in the pits.
Yeah, he struggled all weekend. He has not been fast since his crash. And I'm not surprised to see him in. They just didn't have a handle on the race car and never did get one.
That's a team, Larry, with a little bit of uncertainty because they've said that Ryan Briscoe will not be in the car next week at Michigan, and we don't know yet what they're going to do.
There was speculation that Sarah Fisher was going to be in that car. A lot of people had pretty much had her penciled in as the driver, but we were just told by the Ryan Reinbold people earlier today that that had all kind of fallen apart, and they weren't sure who they were going to have at Michigan because they just didn't have anybody yet. And Briscoe's deal was only for 3 races. Look at Meira. He got a good run off of 4. Boy, he made that look easy. And Schechter did the smart thing. He saw how much faster he was. He threw up his hand and said, hey, I'm not going to battle you side by side this early in the race.
Right. We spoke a moment ago about Danica Patrick. She did not get the start she wanted, Larry, because she started in the 13th position. And I was correct a minute ago, 14th. She's now 13th. She didn't get that early improvement. She's going to be in danger of seeing the leaders in her mirror much earlier than she had hoped for.
Well, that's right. She knew, she's a pretty smart lady. She knew right off the bat that she was going to have to get going pretty quick or she's going to be in jeopardy of having those guys come up and lap her, which is the worst thing that can happen. If you can stay on the lead lap through that first pit stop, then you've always got a chance to win. But if you get lapped before the first pit stop, then you're going to be in trouble.
Larry, how much of that is psychological when you go a lap down like that early?
Well, a lot of it is psychological, but also it's just the fact that once you get a lap down, it's very, very difficult to make that back up. Nothing psychological about that. On a short oval where you're only turning the racetrack in every 22 or 3 seconds, it's hard to, unless you get a yellow and catch a break on your pit stops with timing, then you're going to be some sort of problem.
I'm just a little bit surprised at how the front part of the field is strung out just a little bit early on.
Yeah, I'm not really all that surprised. Castroneves is leading it. Kanaan, though, doing a great job running in second place, and he's been running good all weekend long. So these 2 guys leading it. Marco in 3rd, Sam Hornish in 4th, and Vitor Meira in 5th.
Elio continues to lead here. Tony Kanaan 2nd. The rookie Marco Andretti 3rd.
Yeah, those guys' positions haven't changed too much. And look at this, Marco down under Scott Sharp trying to lap him. And Scott Sharp has already gone a lap down. Let's go back and take a replay when the leaders got by Scott Sharp. You can see right there, Kanaan very aggressive, almost got into Sharp, went clear to the bottom, tried to get around, but couldn't make it. He slid up the racetrack a little bit and let Elio go and retain the lead.
Very wisely, I would add, backed out of the throttle to get the car back under him.
Yeah, this is, boy, they're coming up on a couple guys. That's Matt Surr. They're coming up on the outside there, and Bucknam, both of those guys at the back of the pack. Matt Surr generally not nearly that slow, but look at Marco. He's really catching these guys when they get into the traffic.
Well, it's critical, as you said a moment ago, handling is critical here, and that's why you have to be able to run at different points on the racetrack to be able to deal with all the traffic you have to contend with all day.
Yeah, Marco did a very good job there. He got by Bucknam, got back up in the groove before he got to into the corner. When you can do that, it helps you a lot. I mean, you just don't have to run through the corner. And look at this, Briscoe back on the racetrack and running very slow on the outside groove, way out of the way, but extremely slow compared to everybody else. When you're on a mile like this, your closing rate on a car going that slow is so tremendous. You make a slight miscalculation, you can have a big crash real easy.
Well, Ryan Briscoe was 10 miles an hour slower in qualifying and now looks to be about 10 to 12 mile an hour slower on the racetrack. He was in the pit area for 13 laps. I think my guess is they're trying to improve the handling of that car to at least get him up to a speed comparable to the leaders. Sometimes, Larry, we see race control park somebody that they feel is too far off the pace.
Yeah, and right now you can see that Scott Sharp and he both are very slow on the racetrack. Everybody's lapping them right now. As we see right there, that's Eddie Carpenter, looks like going around them right now. But just earlier, Schechter went around, Meira went around. So these guys, Jeff Simmons, so as we said, traffic is a huge part on the mile, and if you can't run traffic very well, then you're going to be in big trouble, and part of that traffic is Ryan Briscoe right now.
When you're one of the fast guys, Larry, and you deal with a slower car like this, do you feel like you're dealing with him all day long? Does it seem like you're constantly coming up on him?
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with how the driver conducts himself, too. If he maintains his line, and he always does the same thing every lap, then it's not a big problem. You should be smart enough. You should know where he's going to be long before you get to him. If you see him coming off a four and he's going into one, you already know exactly what he's going to do and where he's going to be. Where the problem lies is if a guy decides to change his line when he's running 10 mile an hour slower than you are. And Briscoe's decided it's not worth it running out there on the outside groove. He's going to head back to the pits and say, hey, we either got to fix this thing to go faster, or I'm going to sit in here and watch this thing.
And you can see there's not a lot of urgency around that car. It's as though they really aren't certain what to do.
I think they're just kind of lost. I don't think they have an idea. They've worked on that car. It was a backup car. It was a road race car. They have done what they thought they should do, and it hasn't helped the car, and I think they're just kind of at a loss. They changed a lot of things last night in the garage before they came out here. Obviously, none of those things helped. But look at Tony Kanaan. He appears to be faster right now than Elio Castroneves. And Castroneves is starting to run a little bit lower on the racetrack, which would indicate he's got some understeer.
You know, they pulled to about a 2.5-second lead over Marco Andretti in third and seem to be, Larry, increasing that lead at maybe a 1/10 of a second per lap.
Yeah, there's no question. Look at this. Kanaan gets a run off of four, and he's going to take the lead for the first time. So our second leader of the day is Tony Kanaan.
Well, he's got a great heritage here in open wheel racing, a tremendous go-kart star in Brazil, his native Brazil, and has made a wonderful transition in his professional career to the ovals here in the IndyCar series.
Well, he said after that practice session last week or a week and a half ago, that they thought that really had helped their whole team kind of come to grips with what was going on here in Milwaukee. Obviously, it's done them a lot of good. Remember, this team absolutely dominated IndyCar racing for the last couple of years. This year, they've led less than 3% of the total laps. A phenomenal turnaround nobody expected, including Roger Penske and Chip Ganassi, I don't think.
Well, isn't the real story, though, that last year Penske and Ganassi had the Toyota engine, which apparently the Honda had just a little bit more horsepower. and the Toyota teams were forced to really improve their cars. They couldn't do much about the horsepower, and now that they've got equal horsepower that everyone's using Honda, that's been the difference?
Well, that's been a big part of it. At least that's the theory that everybody's using. We're looking at Dan Weldon. He's still back in 11th place. He and Dixon both running out of the top 10. Dixon in 13th. And that's Danica Patrick right behind him, and then Dixon behind her. So all three of those drivers, not having the runs that they want. And if they continue to run back there and don't get some sort of improvement on those cars, it could be a blow in the point standings, because you can't have bad results very many times when you got two guys like Castroneves and Hornish running up front every week.
Larry, if we stay under green right now, it looks as though within 6 or 8 laps, Danica and even perhaps Weldon are in danger of going a lap down.
Yeah, Danica she's moved up a little bit. She's running some pretty good laps, but she's not been as consistent even today. She's had a little bit more trouble getting through the traffic than some of the other drivers. So you have to be able to run in traffic to run here. She has run a lower groove all weekend long than everybody else, and I'm not sure whether that's hurt her or not, but she didn't feel comfortable up on that high groove like everybody else has been running. But she's done a pretty good job, no matter what you think. Running 4th last week was a very good result for her. And look at this. Fran Katie putting him up on Jeff Simmons. As we take a look, Marco hangs on to 3rd, Sam Hornish, and Vitor Meira. Tony Kanaan, Elio Castroneves, Marco Andretti. Vitor Meira has gotten by Sam Hornish for 4th. As we take a look at the rest of the top 10, Dario Franchitti has moved up well. So Team Green, for the first time this year, is looking like they might have some good results from several of their drivers. They've struggled pretty much all year long, but all of a sudden they're looking a lot better.
And Tony Kanaan just about to lap Scott Dixon, who's in the 13th position right now. Boy, that is not what Dixon wanted this stage.
No, it certainly isn't. It's unbelievable that they have struggled here. Ganassi team has struggled at this racetrack every year they've been here. 2004, 2005, they struggled both years. They struggled big time. They tore up a lot of cars, and Weldon was pretty optimistic that come race time they would have a handle on it, but obviously it's not the handle that they want here today, as Scott Dixon is struggling just down the lead lap, and he's going to have to run pretty quick because they've got another 25 laps before pit stop, so it's going to be tough for him to stay on that lead lap.
He's got to really hustle or hope for a yellow that would bail him out. It's interesting, Larry, as of a couple of hours before race time, the team owner Chip Ganassi was not here on the grounds. It would be very, very rare for him to miss. I understand he had some flight cancellation problems and was stranded in an airport and couldn't get here. But maybe he's hoping if he stays away, it'll change their luck.
Well, maybe so, but him not being here is not doing much for him right at this point. But Castroneves seems to have lost the handle just a little bit on the handling in his cars. And it looks like he got hung up behind the lap traffic. Let's see. No, it doesn't look like he's going to get past here. But I'm telling you what, Marco had the beat on him. And if he'd have stayed out there and followed that car through that corner, he was going to be in big trouble. Marco's gaining on Vitor Meira is gaining on both of these guys as he's moved up into 4th position. And Vitor Meira has been the fastest car on the racetrack the last several laps.
You see the orange car just at the top of your screen there. He's got him in his sights. Now he's just got to run him down.
And it looks like Marco is a little bit faster. So he's, he hasn't figured out where he needs to go on the racetrack. Obviously, Castroneves running right in the fastest groove on the racetrack. Although Castroneves has moved down. You can see right there. He moved down on the racetrack more than he was at the very first.
Briscoe, we're told, is out of his car and may talk with us here in just a moment. We'll see if we can go downstairs. In the meantime, riding along with Marco Andretti, with Tony Kanaan ahead, there's Dan Weldon. Do not adjust the color on your sets. That's been a red car for many years, but this weekend is green with the Fujifilm colors.
Yeah, and he's gone a lap down, so that really puts him in a world of hurt. Even though he's only 16 points out of the lead in the points race, it certainly puts him behind here today, and it doesn't help his chances any when something like this happens. Kanaan is just on a rail. He is just so fast right now. He's been lapping this thing at 155, 160 miles an hour, which is faster than anybody else on the racetrack.
53 laps completed. You know, we see Marco Andretti right there in the blue 26 chasing the red 3 of Helio Castroneves. We forget sometimes because of the Andretti name, this kid, Andretti, is a rookie. He has never before driven an IndyCar here at Milwaukee. So, in fairness, he's probably still just figuring it out.
Right, and I think, oh, looks like you got a big run this time. Let's see. Castroneves is going to move down too, but he made it. He got by. Castroneves got hung up a little bit in that lap traffic. Didn't get on the throttle quite quick enough, and Marco just had too big a run on him. Castroneves didn't have any choice but to back out and let him go. Let's go down and see if we can hear from Ryan Briscoe and some of the problems that he's had all weekend long. There's Michael Andretti intently watching not only his son, but the other 2 people.
Yeah, the 24-year-old driver stepped out of the escort machine for driver and Ryan. Ryan, what kind of problems were you having?
Yeah, it's a real shame. We've been struggling all weekend, and we made a ton of changes overnight for the race, hoping we'd be able to turn it around, but went out there, and the rear was getting really loose in the middle of the turns. We came in, changed to the rear spring, but it just wasn't happening for us this weekend. We just can't find the balance, and it's such a shame because we've had such a great run with the Giant Reinbold racing team, and we're really confident coming here, hoping for a good weekend, but it just hasn't been our race day.
All right, we are being told Ryan Briscoe will be back in the car at Infineon Raceway, where he sat on the pole a year ago. And we're also hearing rumblings that possibly Sarah Fisher may get a shot to drive this car or another one, maybe as soon as next week at Michigan. Wouldn't that be a story, guys?
Well, Larry, the interesting thing, Marco Andretti has gotten by Helio, as we saw a moment ago. Now let's see if he can run down his teammate, the leader, Tony Kanaan.
Well, Franchitti's moved up to 6th, too, so he continues his move towards the front. And Michael's got to be a pretty happy guy now for probably the first time all year long, as they have really struggled big time. A lot of people kind of giving him a tough time. And let's take another look at Marco as he makes a pretty bold move as he gets in that lap traffic and had to get down to the inside. Dixon lapping a car, and then Dixon himself being lapped. So 3 cars all of a sudden decide to pass each other.
You know, we'll watch his right hand, Larry, as he comes off the corner. He's actually shifting. See the car right there? He's shifting the car. Why does he do that here on an oval?
Well, a lot of these drivers are doing that on this racetrack, and especially in traffic. If you've got your car set up perfectly, then in theory you shouldn't have to shift gears. But like right now, in traffic, and if the car has a real big understeer, then you're going to have to shift because you lose too many RPMs. They just listen to the engine, and they watch the tachometer, and when it gets down below about 9,800 RPMs, 9,700, then they automatically just grab that next gear. 5th and 6th gears are very close to each other.
As you see, you kind of get under him and feel like you clear him, try to move back into the racing groove now. There's Vitor Meira trying to run down Marco Andretti.
Yeah, Meira has moved up. He's in 3rd place. He's gotten around Castroneves too. So both of the Penske cars very uncharacteristically having some handling problems here early in the going.
It could be, Larry, that they went a little too conservative on the race setup?
Well, they practiced all day on Friday on the race setups, and they were not even close in the speed charts, but they knew they wouldn't be because there's what was happening. And now Franchitti's gotten around Castroneves, so Castroneves is really falling on hard times, the same as Harnish has.
Well, and what a resurgence for Andretti Green. I mean, wow, they've got 3 cars now in the top 5.
Well, they certainly do. They got 3 in the top 4, and so they've really come a long, long way. Brian Hurd is running at 9th, so all 4 cars in the top 10. But to have 3 of their 4 cars, last year that was an every weekend happening. We saw them run 1, 2, 3. We've seen them run good. But look at this. Castroneves has fallen off the pace so badly that now Harnish is catching up with him, and he's in. He could get passed by Harnish as well.
Sam is trying to hang in there, I assume. We're about 10 or 15 laps maybe to our first pit stop. They're hoping for a caution. Would much rather make the stop under caution, but you don't have a lot of time on a green flag stop to really improve the car that much.
Now, the real danger is if you get caught in the pits on a yellow flag, or you make a pit stop under the green and then the yellow flag comes out. So these guys are all going to stay out there as long as they can, as long as they dare, trying to make the fuel last so that they don't have to pit under the green. But if there's no yellow comes out, everybody's going to have to pit under the green.
What's that American expression? Dead duck? That's not what you want to be.
That's right. You don't want to be a dead duck. Vitor Meira having a good run here so far. And that bright orange car with the new sponsorship with Revive hopes for a great finish here. But he's got to deal with Andretti Green first, as they are the guys right now that seem to have a handle on the Milwaukee Mile. Man, oh man, we almost had a crash entering the pits as Marco came on, got hard on the brakes. Franchitti came in. I thought he was going to run right into the backup. I think he finally got stopped. I'm not sure whether he actually touched him or not, but it was very, very close as both of those guys came in at the same time, and Marco just slowed down way more than Franchitti was expecting him to.
Well, the pit road speed limit here, Larry, 45 miles per hour. If you exceed that, you get a stop-and-go penalty. Perhaps Marco thought he was coming in too hot. I thought for a moment something happened on the front straightaway and the yellow flag was out, but then it was not. It was almost like nobody knew what was happening for a moment.
Yeah, those guys both came in. Let's see now. You can bet that they're going to make some adjustments here to Castroneves' car.
The jacks are in place. 4 tires, of course. Fueler. Now, I didn't see any front wing adjustments. So it looks as though full load of fuel and he's away. I don't think they changed the car, Larry.
That's pretty amazing to me as much as he fell back. Let's see if Meira. Now, this is the one place that Meira's team has had some problems. He's gained a lot of spots, and then they'd come in and have some problems in the pits, and he'd lose several spots. That looked like a pretty clean stop that time, though.
Yep, nice stop.
But he's had some problems in there. Tony Kanaan, of course, with the lead. See if he can get out. You want to make sure you get all the fuel in there. We've seen a lot of guys have problems pulling out too early. So it's important that you wait until they get that fuel hose out of there. Everybody seemed to have pretty good stops that time by, though.
That shuffle leaves Thomas Schechter, the South African, in the lead in the Vision car. The number 2 car there you see is a very, very aggressive young racer who's crashed some cars, but also shown signs of great promise in oval racing. This kid can really race.
No question about it. He's had some great, great runs, and he's out there just kind of milking that thing right now, hoping that he'll get a yellow flag before he has to make that pit stop. But he's on lap 74, so he's going to have to come in pretty shortly.
There's Danica Patrick. You're on board with her as she makes her way down pit road, turns in a little bit, now spots her pit crew. Here she comes. They're in place. You see the tires and the marker. One of the things they have on that sign they hold out there says reset fuel, so that your computer can properly calculate your fuel usage. 4 tires. They're holding her, still taking on the fuel. And now away she goes. Good stop.
Yeah, it looked like a pretty good stop. Everybody that we've seen in so far seem to have pretty clean stops. It takes a while to get 30 gallons of fuel. That fuel only flows so fast. These are centrifugal. They're not pressurized systems. It's all centrifugal force. And here comes Sam Hornish, who stayed out there longer than just about anybody else on the racetrack. He's getting great fuel mileage.
Well, one thing Penske is a genius at, and Jeff Simmons has a problem.
Yeah, he had a problem. I'm not sure exactly what. It didn't look like he had gotten into the where they could get the fuel hose in.
Yeah, that would have just been a rookie mistake there, too, to place the car incorrectly when you stop.
And that very well could have been something that the captain has planned. As you see that Kanaan pulled back out, and Hornish stayed out there, and he's pulled back on now. But I tell you, the captain might be playing a game here of fuel mileage, hoping to run on 2 pit stops, or who knows. But I can't believe there's not some sort of strategy of some sort there.
Well, as we said, Jeff Simmons had a problem a moment ago. He comes in. Oh, turned in too tight.
Turned in too tight. There was somebody in the pit before him. He missed his pit, so they had to back him up and pull him back up. That'll cost him a lot of time and a lot of positions on the racetrack. Probably cost him a lap on this 22nd racetrack, because that took about 8 or 9 seconds.
Indeed, now Jeff Simmons running 2 laps down, Larry. You're correct. It cost him a lap.
Yeah, has to cost you a lap when you make a mistake like that. And that was a mistake that I guess you could blame it on a rookie mistake. But when you got a car behind you like that, those tights, the pit stalls at Milwaukee are not nearly as wide as they are on like a 1.5 or 2 mile track, just because the straightaway is a lot shorter. So instead of having 76 feet, you might only have 65 feet to put your car in your stall, and it just wasn't enough room to turn in there.
There's Scott Sharp, the veteran from Connecticut, now living in Florida, I believe. Pretty uneventful stop for him. Fuel nozzle was disconnected.
This is what we were talking about right there. Schechter, Franchitti was just on the brakes extremely hard to keep from running in. Look at this. Let's see if he actually touched it. Oh, he touched his tire, it looked like. Either that or he smoked the tire with the brake. I'm not sure, but the left front was smoking right there just about the time he got to Marco. And
I'm not sure, Larry, you can pin all of that on Marco because you have to slow down a lot. That's a very tight pit entrance there.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got to slow down to get in there, and I think maybe Dario just came up on him a little too quickly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there was any blame there. It's just the fact that one slowed down a lot more than the other guy thought he was going to do. That's all. Look at this now. Kanaan, Andretti, and Franchitti, all 1, 2, 3, Herta back in 5th. This is what Michael Andretti likes to see, and this is what he's used to, and this is what he expects out of his drivers.
That was an excellent stop for Brian Herta because he picked up 2 track positions.
Well, you know, and that may be a case where they didn't take on a full fuel load. Maybe they're counting on a yellow, and they might have short fuel.
Yeah, to get out of sequence. That's what I was going to say a moment ago. That's one thing that Roger Penske is excellent at, figuring out how to use pit sequence to his advantage.
His strategy, like at Indianapolis, he won that thing because of pit strategy, and even after their trouble and the fuel hose problem and all that stuff, he was still smart enough not to panic, and they went in there and had and won that race.
The Milwaukee Indy 225 continues. 84 laps in the book. There's your leader, Tony Kanaan, and that's the top 5 here at Milwaukee. Continues to lead the Milwaukee Indy 225. Tony Kanaan, the Andretti Green 711 car. Second, Marco Andretti. Dario Franchitti third. They've got a 1-2-3 sweep right now in the front 3 positions. Andretti Green, Vitor Meira fourth. There's the second 5.
Yeah, and it's, you know, Meira running the race that he has run so many times in the last 5 or 6 outings. He's running a good, clean race, back about 3rd or 4th position. As the race gets on, he usually gets stronger. We'll see. But right now, Tony Kanaan is just putting on a clinic. He's 7 seconds ahead of Marco, and he is just at every step of the way. Here's Koksamatsuru, who's having some sort of a problem. Again, not much activity, so it doesn't look like they're too worried about getting in and getting back out.
Apparently he's reported some sort of a problem. They're communicating with him right now by radio. They're looking at the suspension pieces. He may feel a vibration or something wrong there, and now the cowling's coming off and he's finished.
Yep, he's taking off the neck brace and unhooking the radios, which pretty much means they're going to be done for the day. And he was struggling. He was the slowest car on the racetrack other than Ryan Briscoe. But Tony Kanaan is certainly not struggling and is certainly enjoying this right now, believe me. The guy always has a smile on his face and seems to have a good time at the racetrack. Right now, he's having a much better time than he has all year long, believe me.
You know, Larry, Tony Kanaan is a great inspirational story, I think. Grew up in Brazil and was a great go-kart racer. His father passed away when he was about 13, 14 years old, and Tony wound up working full-time in a go-kart building factory and supporting his family, his mother and sisters, all the while trying to pursue a professional career in racing, and did indeed make it. Has obviously carved a great place for himself here in the IndyCar Series. That's just a great inspirational story, and for that guy to always have a smile on his face is impressive to me.
Yeah, we're taking a look at Scott Sharp right now, he's pretty much struggled all day long. He's had there's Koksamatsuru getting out of the car. You can see he's taking off his helmet. He's done. But Scott Sharp is another guy. He's been really hot and really cold this year. A couple of races, he's been very, very fast. But boy, when he's off, it's just like this. Oh, we have a caution, the first caution of the day.
We'll see what maybe a debris caution, Larry. We haven't picked up anything. Yes, we're told it is debris, something on the racetrack. 95 laps, long run without a caution here in the early going.
What's really interesting is that there's only 5 cars on appears to be only 6 cars on the lead lap, excuse me. So it's gone unbelievable how fast the pace has been from Tony Kanaan.
Well, we're told there's some sort of small debris, and they're going to have to get the big track sweepers out, which may see just a little bit of an extended yellow, and we'll have to see how quickly the safety crew can get back at it. There's your leaders, the Milwaukee Indy 220 under caution here at the Milwaukee Indy 225. That is Brian Herta.
These guys only pitted about 25 laps ago, so
yes,
we've seen some. This is a pit strategy thing that these guys are doing. It's kind of amazing to me. Castroneves came in, Herta came in, Marco came in, Franchitti and Kanaan did not. So those guys are really taking a pretty big chance by not coming in. I would have thought all of the leaders would have come in here this early in the race, and I thought Sam Hornish would have come in, but he hasn't come in yet either. He's the lap down. I think what he's hoping is that Kanaan will go in and he'll get his lap back, but so far that has not happened. Kanaan's the only guy in front of him in that lineup there.
Well, I know going a lap down is an unusual position for Sam Hornish here at Milwaukee.
Yeah, certainly is, and there he is. I would have thought that he would have come in, especially since Kanaan didn't. But who knows? The captain is way smarter than me, and he's proved that time and time again.
Well, we're going to continue. We see the sweepers there on the racetrack. Must be some sort of a debris fell off of a car and shattered, perhaps a piece of carbon fiber or something. They're using that sweeper to get the very fine, tiny particles that often happen when that occurs. There's your top 5. Tony Kanaan leads us almost 100 laps in here at the Milwaukee Indy 225. The Milwaukee Indy 225 continues under caution. 102 laps in the books. Tony Kanaan leads. The second 5 there, led by Elio Castroneves, who was an early leader. There we're looking at Scott Dixon's car. Scott Dixon currently in 13th, 2 laps down.
This is kind of an interesting graphic here. If we were going by the F1 system of points, Dixon would be leading both Hornish and Castroneves at this point, with Weldon only 3 points back. So it's just a difference in how the points are allocated between IndyCar and Formula One. Of course, in Formula One, only the top 6 positions gets points.
Well, Larry, if they wrote that big check at the end of the year based on that Formula One schedule, Dixon would be a happy guy, but they don't.
No, they don't. they're gonna pay according to their own, that's for sure. And so you got to beat them the way the rules are written here in the IndyCar series.
Well, you're correct about the marbles. That's exactly what they're doing. They moved that sweeper down from turn 3 and 4 to 1 and 2 now.
I think a lot of the concern were the marbles on the straightaway. We took a look at them as along that front straightaway, and I think that was a lot of the concern, was that those marbles had worked their way down into the straightaway. When you're on the straightaway, there's no way to miss them. As long as you're in the corners, you can kind of stay down in the groove. You shouldn't pick them up. But and here comes Hornish, I presume. Couldn't pick up the number, but I'm sure it's Hornish who's finally come in. But he waited till near the end of this session so that he could run it a lot longer. He's going to stretch this out. So he's going to be able to run it longer than anybody else. I'm hoping that by doing that, he can somehow work his way back onto the lead lap.
Well, they got fresh tires, Larry, and that full load of fuel. Maybe the key is not so much the fuel window, but the fresh tires, that he'll be a little quicker and maybe get that lap back.
Well, it could be, but basically what you have to count on right there is the fuel strategy. The tires are going to help you only for about 4 or 5 laps. Other than that, it's going to have to be the fuel strategy that helps you out. So we'll just have to wait and see, but I know they're struggling right now to get that lap back.
I think we're going to go green here in just a moment. The Milwaukee Indy 225, yes, they're showing 1 lap to go. They've removed the sweeping equipment. Caution for debris about 12 laps ago. We're now at 107 laps complete, 108 as they take the green flag. Tony Kanaan continues to lead. He has led since lap 32 and looks awfully strong in this early going, Larry.
Yeah, he certainly does. So, you know, these guys have just stopped on the second time. They're going to be on 2 pits. They're going to have to go and stop one more time. So it'll be interesting to see if those pay off. the guy who I'm really kind of surprised is Tony Kanaan. He and Franchitti did not stop. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out.
They may very well, Larry, feel that they're very happy with their car. Scheckter
gets his lap back by passing our leader. And here comes Franchitti. He's on the inside. And Jeff Simmons, I'm not sure what happened to Tony Kanaan on that restart, but whatever happened was not a good thing, as he got passed by at least 2 cars, and Jeff Simmons is trying to make it 3. And here comes Vitor Meira down on the inside of Simmons.
And we can't, Larry, just point to fresh tires because Franchitti did not pit.
No, he did not pit. None of those guys up there in the front had pitted, so he, whatever happened on that restart was not a good thing for him, and I'm sure he's sitting there yelling at himself right now because he should not have let that happen, even by his teammate.
Well, even on a short oval, my assumption is momentum is very, very important here once you get a run on someone.
Oh, it is important, and believe me, we get another yellow right away.
Elio Castroneves. Obviously contact.
Well, it'll have to be contact with somebody else, I assume. Either that or just broke. I can't imagine. You can see the suspension piece on there has collapsed. You almost always have to have some sort of contact with something. Since it's the left front, you would certainly think it wasn't any kind of a wall or anything.
He was currently shown in 6th position the last lap, Larry, and it's a tough break for Elio.
But the wing is not hit, so if he'd have run into another car, certainly there would have been some damage to the wing. It may just be a piece of the suspension failed, and man, no. I would say there was some contact.
I'd say they'd call that wheel banging.
Yeah,
I think that was the contact.
Yeah,
yes.
I think you're right. Ed Carpenter, left fronts and right rears that are both loose is not a good sign.
Well, if you're a detective, you start deducing things.
Look at that. Elio is furious. I've very, very seldom ever seen Elio Castroneves that upset. Unbelievable. I don't know what happened, but he is furious with Ed Carpenter.
See if we can get a look.
Well, it looked like Elio was on the outside, and obviously Elio thinks that Carpenter moved right up and ran into him. We'd have to take another close look at that, but I kind of have to agree with him. It looked like that he didn't see him out there, and he moved up the racetrack a little bit, and Elio was already there. And when he did, he took the left front off the car. And Elio, I wouldn't, even in Portuguese, I wouldn't want to hear that.
Significant points implications here, Larry, because he's going to be shown probably about, when we're all said and done, about 14th position here, 15th position.
Yeah.
Point-wise, this is a crushing blow to him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely, in the points race, a devastating blow. We just said, we were talking about Weldon and Dixon, how bad it would be if they ran in the back part of the field. Well, to have a DNF at this point in the season is just going to put you in a really, really bad situation. Now, see, Scheckter got his lap back, so he's going to make his pit stop now. So he's back on the lead lap. He'll be at the end of the lead lap, but that was a huge break for Thomas Scheckter to get around Kanaan and then have Elio come out so he could go in and make his pit stop. So he put him right back in the hunt.
Well, and Scheckter has nothing to lose at this point. He can come in, make the stop, and just kind of roll the dice, see if it's in his favor.
Absolutely. I think that benefited him more than anybody else and hurt Elio Castroneves more than you can believe. And it's going to really put a crimp in any kind of chance he has to win this championship at this point. Because, with only a few races to go, to drop that many points back, it really, really hurts.
Well, we're going to go green here coming off the 4th corner, coming right up as we ride with Marco Andretti. He's moving the car around to warm the tires a little bit for the restart.
Well,
some early drama here, Larry.
Yeah, Franchitti and Kanaan both stayed on the racetrack. We hope to be able to talk to Elio Castroneves. I'm sure. I mean, I know exactly what he's going to say, and I don't blame him. And I don't blame him. There's sometimes you're better off to keep your mouth shut than to say what you really want to on television. It doesn't take any interview to tell what he's thinking right now. And all that fist shaking and all that is aimed right at that guy right there, and Eddie Carpenter. And he absolutely thinks Ed Carpenter moved up and took him out of the race, and it's not going to forget him very easily, believe me.
But we didn't have a good angle on the replay, Larry.
We don't know.
It could be just the red mist of competition that when he thinks about it and talks with Ed, he may say, you know what, it was just a racing accident. You know, it's a tight little oval, and sometimes you just can't avoid each other.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's very tight. You have to run close. He's doing what you have to do on an oval. He was running on the outside. Look at this, the first 4 guys. And look at Meira. He's thinking about taking a shot at Kanaan. But he was running out there. You have to do that. You have to run close to the guy. You got to trust the guy not to run into you. For whatever reason the contact was made, you know, he's not going to be happy about it.
And Marco Andretti, we see him move to the inside of Vitor Meira. He has fresher tires by about 20 laps, Larry.
Yeah, and you can see right there, he got a little loose, and he saved the car. We've seen Marco on several occasions in Indianapolis, especially, the car got a little loose. He did a terrific job saving the car. And these cars are not easy to save. Once they get loose, once that back end car starts jumping around on you, really got to be a good driver and on top of things to catch it. And he's done that several times.
We're now past the halfway point, Larry Rice, here at the Milwaukee Indy 225. Andretti Green got to be considered the story of the day thus far.
Well, there's no question about it. The Andretti Green team with Franchitti, Kanaan, and Marco Andretti, and Brian Herta for that matter, they got 4 cars in the top 5. The other biggest story should be that Team Penske has 1 car out and 1 car a lap down at just over the halfway mark, which I don't think anybody, including me, ever expected.
Nope. And you know what happened to Elio happens. That's just sometimes that happens when you're fast and out in the lead. But what's more surprising to me is Sam Hornish. He's simply not there today.
Yeah,
he's not as nearly as competitive as we expected.
No, they thought all weekend long they were very confident. They thought that they were going into this race, everything in place like it was last year. They would be very competitive and in the lead. And for whatever reason, and I'm sure we'll know by midweek, they'll be able to tell us, but for whatever reason, they just completely missed the race day setup. And the conditions today are not that much different than they were yesterday. It's only in the, it's not real hot. It's a very mild day. There's not a lot of wind. So the conditions, the setup should not be that much today because they qualified under almost identical conditions to this yesterday afternoon.
Well, I'm Dave Argabright alongside Larry Rice, the Milwaukee Indy 225. Many of you are accustomed to hearing our friend Gary Lee in this seat. Normally, Gary at home taking care of matters after the unfortunate death of his father. We wish Gary well. We certainly do miss you, Gary, and look forward to you getting back here right away.
Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the racetrack, all within about 6 car lengths of each other. And here's the points implication as of right now. Hornish, even though he's not running real well, would still be 12 points ahead of Dixon. Castroneves drops to 17 down, and Weldon 20 off the pace.
To me, Larry, that graphic really points out how difficult a season it's been for Andretti Green, because even with this really good showing as of this moment, they're still not right in the hunt.
No, they still wouldn't be in the top 5, so it's really been difficult for them. It was this, with Castroneves out of the race and Hornish having a bad run, it would really been a great chance for Weldon and Dixon to make up some spots, but they've had their problems here today too. So right now, Team Green and Dario Franchitti, he has been awfully good for a guy who's not particularly fond of the ovals. He would make no bones about it. When Andretti Green first came over here, he wasn't real happy with that. He likes the road courses better, but last year and this year, Dario Franchitti has been extremely good on the short miles. Last year at Phoenix, he was absolutely terrific. That was the best race I've ever seen Dario Franchitti run. He crashed right near the end, didn't finish, but it was still the best race I've ever seen him run. It just proved to me that this guy can run these short ovals and run them very well, and he's proven it here today too.
Looks to me like Kanaan may be pressing him just a little bit here, Larry.
Yep. Once the fuel load has gone down a little bit, they get a ways through their fuel run, then it looks like he's going pretty good. So we'll see what happens.
Kanaan's going to need to pit here within the next 20 laps, Larry. I think that's going to be about his window, about 145. So those tires are worn, but he's still very, very quick. And we see on the left side of your screen there, they're working on a signboard like they did in Milwaukee here in the old days, because he's got apparently radio problems and his crew is not able to communicate with him electronically. They've got to communicate through the signboard. That's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult in today's world. I mean, it's hard for a lot of us to realize that without the radios, I mean, they do so much with those radios. It's unbelievable. And without them, you're just lost. So they're going to have to use signboards, which is not the greatest method anymore. Here you take a look out the back of Dario Franchitti's car, the Canadian club, Klein Tools car. And his teammate is Tony Kanaan, is trying to chase him down, closing in. So far, though, Franchitti hangs on as 4 AGR cars in the top 5.
We've got a new leader here. Just a moment ago, the 11 car of Tony Kanaan swept by
Dario
Franchitti for the lead. 135 laps in, Larry. 90 to go.
Yeah, and look at Meira. Meira now has started to catch up with Franchitti as Kanaan, as he did earlier in the day, he's pulling away from his teammate. So let's go back and take a look at that pass. As Kanaan had been flirting with this pass a couple laps before, every time going into turn 1. This time, though, he was clear up beside Franchitti. Franchitti saw him, says, you know, you've got that now. I can't take it away from you. He just pulled out, let him go on, and pulled in behind him. And since that time, Kanaan really is pulled away to about almost a second lead.
A caution for Meira. Vitor Meira has crashed.
Wow, that's not a good thing. He obviously heavy damage to the left rear and the rear of the car. Vitor Meira. The first crash he's had for a while.
Certainly the first for Panther this year.
Yeah. And after a tremendous run over the last 5 races, finally runs into some difficulty, and this will hurt his point standing too.
You know, Larry, a moment ago we talked a great deal about Sam Hornish and points. He's actually in the 7th position, and he will be 6th now because Meira was in 6th. Overall, point-wise, he's still in pretty good shape today.
Yeah, he's still in pretty good shape. You can see that Meira is moving around in the car. Appears to be okay. Doesn't appear to be extremely bad hit, but bad enough to tear the car and put him out of the race. Let's see if we can take a look at exactly what happened from on board with Vitor Meira. Couldn't tell whether something broke or whether he just got in there and got loose. One way or the other, though, the back end of the car, you can see him. He tried to save it once. It went around pretty quick, but the back end let loose once. He tried to catch it, and the second time it went on around. And he just hit pretty hard with the left rear of the car.
You can see, Larry, to the outside, right there where you see behind him that safer barrier, the energy absorbing wall. It's like a wall within a wall. And he hits and see the black marks right there where he hit. Pretty hard impact. Those are large blocks of energy absorbing material there. They may have to replace a couple of those real quickly before we can get back underway.
Yeah, the safer barrier was developed by Tony George in Indianapolis Motor Speedway with some help from NASCAR, but Tony George was the main force behind developing that wall, and it's been a tremendous thing for IndyCar racers and IndyCar racing. It's saved a lot of injuries to drivers, and that was the main thrust of the whole thing. And now then the NASCAR people have all caught in. All the cars have they're doing it too, as everybody now heads for the pits under the yellow flag.
Now let's see if it looks as though Hornish did pit as well. There's the leaders. Kanaan to the top. See if everything's smooth on those 3 stops. Pretty quick stop for Franchitti, looked like.
Boy, it's going to be interesting. It'll be close.
It'll shuffle a little. Great stop for Marco, 7 seconds.
Yeah, it's going to be close to see if these guys can make it to the end of the race without another pit stop. It'll be 85 laps, and that would be a long, long way to go. You'd really have to run a conservative fuel, and you'd have to have a few laps under pits, but they're telling us that Sam Hornish got his lap back, so... he ran over a hose.
Ran over an air hose.
He's going to have to
over
come in.
Kanaan's.
That'll be a penalty because it doesn't matter whether it's your air hose or somebody else's. The rule is you cannot run over air hose in the pit lane. So he'll have probably a drive-through penalty once they restart.
And the reason for that, Larry, there's Brian Barnhart now reviewing with his other officials what's going to be the penalty, probably reviewing exactly what happened, maybe from some officials that were on hand right there.
Right.
And then they will get on the radio, as you see him on the headset, probably with the team, to tell them what the assessment will be.
Right. Brian Barnhart has done a terrific job of running this series, and he's been very decisive when he sees an infraction. He doesn't hesitate to imply the penalty, and that's what he's going to do here. No matter what about the race, he's going to make him pay the penalty. Well, there you see the car heading off the racetrack after he got into the fence. Tough break for Vitor Meira.
145 laps now in at the Milwaukee Indy 225. 1 lap to green here for a restart. Vitor Meira crashed a moment ago. We're going to see now what the penalty will be for our leader, Marco Andretti, who on a series of pit stops a moment ago ran over Tony Kanaan's air hose from the adjoining pit. Will be assessed a stop-and-go penalty, my guess is, and we will have to see as they come around 3 and 4 to take the green flag.
And that was Elio Castroneves that we saw there. He's back on the racetrack once again after replacing the whole left front suspension on that car. And a huge task by that crew, and they did a terrific job. As there you see Kanaan and Franchitti both got around Thomas Scheckter, who had run, he was running behind those guys.
And we're told there will be no penalty. Brian Barnhart has ruled that the infraction, I guess that it couldn't be avoided or something like that, but we'll just take it that means no penalty, period.
Wow, that's very unusual. We saw the same thing happen in Indianapolis, and there was a drive-through penalty evoked, so maybe he's saying that it was the fault of Kanaan's crew for not having that out of the way. It's the only thing I can think of, the only reason they would have for not imposing a penalty in that case.
No matter what, Larry, it's going to create some discussion after the race among the other teams. Anytime you make a ruling one way or another, it's going to create discussion.
And right now we have Andretti Green, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first time this year that we've seen that happen, and they did have one race where they finished 1, 2, 3, 4 last year, but it's been a long dry spell for those guys. But right now they're looking pretty good.
Larry, we've got to talk about this. If you listen to the reports that are circulating throughout the sport, this is a team, though as great as they're running today, is somewhat in transition. We're told there's a possibility that Brian Herta and Dario Franchitti would move to the ALMS Honda Acura effort next year and would move out of this series, opening up a seat for none other perhaps than
Danica Patrick is the word in the rumor mill that she might move from Ray Hall Letterman over to this team. So it's all speculation. This is what we call silly season here in America, where every rumor that you can imagine is floating around the pit area as to who's going to be where and who's going to do what. But it's right now, that was the big rumor this weekend, that Danica Patrick might move over to Andretti Green, and Brian Herta and Franchitti would go run in another series for Andretti Green, but in another series.
Well, Danica got her lap back a moment ago, but she's now 12 seconds behind the leader. She's going to have to pick the pace up, or she'll just lose that lap again.
Yeah, she's going to have to pick it up. But right now, Marco Andretti running some pretty quick laps, and Kanaan not able to close in on him. As a matter of fact, Marco has pulled away just a little bit from him over the last couple of laps.
Could this be the day that the rookie who nearly won Indianapolis breaks through for his first win? We'll have to see. We're about 75 laps or so, 70 laps to the finish.
Well, I can promise you that even though they're teammates, and even though that's the boss's son out front, Tony Kanaan is going to win this race if there's any way possible. He's the guy he's the guy that's kept this team together. When, they've had a lot of reasons to get down this year. They've had a lot of reasons to get mad at each other, to yell at each other. But Tony Kanaan has been the guy who has been the upbeat guy. Hey, guys, we're having a little of a rough time, but we got to get through this. We can still win races. We can still do well. And he's not only that he's been upbeat for the other drivers, but for the whole crew. I mean, any of those guys in that whole team will tell you that he's been the guy that's kept the smile on his face and kept saying, hey, we can do this. Don't get upset. We're still in the hunt here. And you have to have one of those kind of guys on a team like this if you want to win races.
I believe you would call that leadership.
I think so.
He's just naturally the guy everybody respects, and he recognizes that. He's very mature, calm, very much a strong believer in himself and his teammates, and that's the leader that they needed right now.
Well, absolutely. And you talked earlier about some of the hardships he went through as a young man trying to break into this sport. And I think that all adds to your character. And I think he and Castroneves are best of friends off the racetrack. They live close to each other down in Miami Beach. And both of them have that kind of a leadership quality and that kind of an upbeat attitude that everybody really appreciates.
We're going to try to hear from Vitor Meira. Let's go.
Morning time for any driver. Vitor, what happened out there?
I don't know. I just turned into three and for some reason lost it. I mean, I was on the same position I always been and always doing the same thing. The thing just snapped on me, and that's what happened.
When you don't have a reasonable explanation, what does that do to you mentally?
Well, sooner or later we're going to have something. We're going to go through the telemetry. We're going to go through everything we have. Sooner or later we're going to find something. But right now it's the big question mark.
That question mark, guys, though, will get answered very shortly.
Well, that's interesting. He's had a very good season, and without an answer, it probably is either one of two things. Either something broke very quickly in the rear, or he just flat lost it getting into the corner, and I guess they'll find out when they look at the telemetry really well.
Well, Sam Hornish Jr. shown right there. He's currently 6th. That's about where he's ran all day, Larry. He's kind of hung in there, and as of this minute, if the race finished exactly in this order, he would carry that 13-point lead into next week's race at Michigan.
Yeah, the big loser being Castroneves, of course, going 19 points down. That's a lot of points in this series, the way the points are kept. So it would, he's out there. He may gain 1 or 2 points on these guys by running the rest of the laps, but even with that, he's still going to lose a lot of ground. And it's a tough break, especially when it's something, that's not your own fault, takes you out of the race.
Hornish is actually picking up the pace just a little bit. He's trimming that lead just a little bit, but I don't think it's dramatic enough to make him a contender, as we see Dan Weldon's number 10 there about to be passed by the Penske car.
Yeah, and he's struggled. He's had a good run. He's been very consistent. He and Scott Dixon both, they're running in 8th and 10th positions right now, but they just have been about a half a mile an hour off the fastest guys all day long for whatever reason. You can see all the on the front wings, you can see all those fins up there to help with the downforce. They run as much wing as they can on this racetrack, but for whatever reason, they just have not ever gotten a handle on their race cars.
Well, it's been just a typical 1 mile race here, or a typical race on the 1 mile here, Larry. Only we've seen a pretty clean race. Are you surprised?
Not really. I mean, in some ways, yes. I mean, you're going to have some contact like Castroneves had with Carpenter, but for the most part, it's been a pretty good run. There you see Hornish closing in on Thomas Scheckter. That's for 5th position. So Hornish, as the race goes on, seems to be picking it up just a little bit. So we'll see.
Well, Hornish running laps that are getting him a little bit closer, but he's got a little bit to go as we're counting down the laps here at the Milwaukee Indy 225. Sam Hornish now making a move, taking 5th place from Thomas Scheckter. made it look a little bit easy there, Larry. Now let's see what he can do. He's actually consistently stayed about 7 2/10 seconds behind the leader, who is Marco Andretti at this point. So see if maybe he's hoping that he can get a little bit of a run here. Now, let me ask you this. What about, there's Marco Andretti, our leader. What about pit strategy at this stage? Can these guys go the rest of the way?
Well, that's what we're going to have to wait and see. I think there's going to be some guys try to stretch the fuel. Marco Andretti leads. There's his teammate who's about just under a second behind Marco Andretti. And remember, Kanaan seems to get stronger near the end of a run. So he's probably biding his time. As we get closer to the end, he'll probably make his move on Marco. Here's Frank Kanaan. You can see from above his head that he's about a half a straightaway behind Tony Kanaan. During the second part of the race, he was the fastest car on the racetrack, got around Kanaan, pulled away for a little while, but since that point, he's fallen back a little bit. And there's the guy who's kind of the forgotten member of the AGR team, Brian Herta, who has really struggled a little bit this year, but he makes that fourth member of the Andretti Green Racing team in the top 4, and he's having a great run here today.
Sam Hornish Jr. now has drawn behind him to perhaps contest with Brian Herta for 4th place. We think about the point implications here. With each position that Sam Hornish improves, does have an effect on this very tight point race, with him being shown as the point leader.
Well, there's no doubt that he's thinking about that, and so is everybody else, especially Weldon and Dixon, who are out there struggling, trying to maintain their positions in the top 10 right now. But he's gaining on Herta. Every single lap, he's gaining about a half a second. So at that pace, he's going to catch him and pass him quite easily, honestly.
175 laps complete, 50 laps remaining. The Milwaukee Indy 225. Here comes Hornish. Going to try to move perhaps to the outside.
Look how far Scheckter has fallen behind. He's in 6th place. He's still on the lead lap, but look how far back he has fallen from Hornish. Hornish only passed him about, I'd say, 4 laps ago. I didn't really pay much attention to which lap it was, but since he's passed him, boy, he is really falling back. Danica's catching him very quickly.
And Sam Hornish is now only just a shade over 6 seconds back from the leader, Larry. He has, over the last 10 laps, cut a second off the lead. He may be the man on the move.
Yeah, and here comes Danica. You know, Scheckter might be playing the fuel game. He might have leaned that thing out, thinking, I'm going to make it to the end no matter what. And maybe that's the reason he slowed down so dramatically.
Well, that's not a bad strategy. I mean, he's not really in the thick of the points race, and he could sneak one in here.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody else has to pit and he can manage to stretch his fuel for 85 laps, I don't see how they can do that. But I mean, I've been fooled before when a guy, turns the fuel down. And look at this, a battle for the lead is Tony Kanaan. What did we just say about oh, look at this. Marco says it's not going to be that easy. I'm not going to give this to you. Wow. He got a big run on him, got under him, looked like he was just going to go blow by. Now he goes on by. Marco has to let him go, but Marco battled him pretty hard. Stayed right on the outside of him, and they came way too close for Michael Andretti's liking, I would imagine, going through turns 1 and 2.
Boy, as both the dad and the team owner there, that's when you're really gritting your teeth.
You had dual emotions, and neither one of them were good at all, believe me. On both counts, he did not want to see those 2 cars touch going through that corner.
Now Sam Hornish has indeed, Larry, drawn up right behind Brian Herta here. Going to try to make a move. They've got a lapped car ahead of him.
Well, a couple of laps ago, he actually tried to get around him coming off of turn 4, and he couldn't make the pass as Herta moved down on him. Now that he goes to the outside, Herta doesn't have a prayer here. Once he set him up on the outside, Herta moved down to take the groove away from him, and when he did, Sam fell back quite a ways and took him about 3 laps to catch him again. But once he caught him, he just went on around.
That's an impressive pass on the outside like that, when you can make that move to the outside at that point in the corner.
Well, especially since he had made the same move on the inside about 3 laps earlier. And Brian knew, or thought he knew, that that's where he would be running. So he moved his groove down a little bit, and Sam says, well, if you want to run there, I'll just run where you're not. Boy, Tony Kanaan, once again, has moved out into a 3 or 4 car length lead over Marco. Marco's keeping up with him. Neither one of these guys are both running in the 155-mile-an-hour range. So these guys are not trying to conserve fuel. They're running as fast as those things will go. And here comes Danica. She's now caught Thomas Scheckter, and that's her 6th spot.
Race for 6. That's exactly right, Larry. Danica maybe just a little bit quicker here.
Well, if she, she just went to the inside and went on by. If Danica Patrick can run in the top 5 here and follow up a 4th place finish last week, it would do tremendous amounts for not only her confidence, but for the team as well.
I believe you'd call that a moral victory.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, after the early season struggle they've had.
When they did not switch to the Dallara until after the Indy 500, they really were behind everybody else. We talked about Andretti Green being behind, but Rahal Letterman was much farther behind because they had not run the Dallara at all. It took them a while to get it figured out. They really went into Indianapolis thinking that they had tested. They knew the tires were different. Oh, here's Dixon in the pits, making an early pit stop.
He's shown now 2 laps down, Larry, so I don't know that he's a contender, but maybe this is indicative of what our window is going to be in terms of maybe you don't want to take that risk of going so long.
Well, it could be. But anyway, when they switched those cars after the Indy 500, it really took them a while to catch up, and now it looks like they're finally getting a handle on those things. Castroneves out there just running around, like you said, going to run as many laps as he can, gain as many points as he can, but he certainly doesn't want to get in anybody's way.
Tony Kanaan continues to lead here at Milwaukee for the Milwaukee Indy 225, but it's going to be a shootout to the finish. About 30 laps to go here at Milwaukee. Tony Kanaan continues to lead. Marco Andretti 2nd. Dario Franchitti 3rd. Second 5 there on your screen.
Jeff Simmons has had a very good run today. He's running in 8th place. He's a lap off the pace, but he has had a very, very good run. That young man can be very proud. He's taken a lot of criticism over the last few weeks, but he came here today ready to race, had the car set up well. Probably not what he had hoped to do, but I think they've done a very credible job.
And Tony Kanaan continues to hold that 7-Eleven car out front. We talked earlier about Sam Hornish. He has now cut the lead to 4.9 seconds as he rides around in 4th. Yeah. Riding on board with Marco Andretti here.
Well, there's Simmons in. He had to come in. The one thing that Tony Kanaan does not want is yellow flag. I think that would be Tony Kanaan's worst enemy at this point in the race. And, of course, for Sam Hornish, it would be absolutely the best thing that could happen for him. But right now, looks good. Marco pulled down. I was thinking, well, maybe he's going to head for the pit area. Who knows? But Franchitti has started to catch Marco. So Marco is falling off the pace little by little here in the later sections of this race.
This is where it's difficult because you don't dare stop yet under green, but they have the computers now that will give you very accurate readings on your fuel mileage and capacity and so forth. But I would think they're starting to get into a little nervous stretch here. It's 60 laps since they have pitted, and their previous window was 72.
Well, yeah, I mean they can go till about 210 or maybe even 215. So the real question is anybody going to try to stretch that last 10 laps out of on their fuel load? We've already seen some of them are enough, but some of them, I really think you're going to see a couple of cars try to stretch it. They got nothing to lose if they don't finish. Like you said, Thomas Scheckter, what's it hurt him if he had? We got a yellow. This is the yellow that we've been waiting on. Bucknam,
Jeff Bucknam. Exactly 25 laps left.
He ran real high. When those guys were lapping him a few laps ago, he got real high on the racetrack coming off of turn 4. This time it looks like he did exactly the same thing, only he didn't miss the wall this time. Well, the most important pit stop of the day coming up for some of these guys. But on the other hand, with these yellow flag laps, again, you're going to see some of the teams not come in for a pit stop. So it'll be very interesting to see the strategies here. Bucknam, once again, he got way high off the corner. He still got him. Wheels were turned hard left, full left, but he got into those marbles, and once he got into the marbles up there above the groove, if the race car was not going to turn, he went into it with the right front. Actually, both side suspensions are gone now, right front and right rear. So not a hard hit, but hard enough that that car is going to have a lot of work done on it.
A.J. Foyt, the owner of that car, sponsored by ABC Supply. I assume that A.J.'s forgotten about being the Grand Marshal at this point.
He's forgotten about it, and not as happy as he was when he said, "Boys and girls, start your engines," either, believe me.
Well, that's his second DNF, but I think it's also his second race, Larry. I don't know that they've finished with Jeff Bucknam in the car. They replaced Felipe Giafone from earlier this year.
Yeah, he's had some problems throughout his IndyCar career, quite realistically. Castroneves is in, again, just trying to gain as many points as he can, not racing anybody hard, not trying to pass anybody, just out there getting in as many laps as he can and hopefully gain 1 or 2 points along the way.
Well, the interesting thing, Larry, is going to be this restart. I mean, obviously we've still got the window here. We'll see some pit activity, but it's going to be interesting to see what kind of a restart Sam Hornish can get to maybe get himself back into contention to win this race.
I'm real interested to see how many of these guys are going to come in and take fuel. If they come in, it's going to be for maybe 1 gallon or 2 gallons of fuel. It's not going to be very much. It'll be a timed pit stop. There won't be any tires taken. You know, if I'm in the points race like Hornish is, I might think about coming in and getting that fuel just to make sure. But for Kanaan and Marco, these guys that won't win their first race of the year, I don't know. I think they might stay out there and take that chance.
Well, again, it becomes you got nothing to lose at this stage. You know, it's been a tough year. Let's win this race. I mean, that may be the thinking. We get a report now, Larry, that via radio that Danica Patrick, who appears to be coming in here, is not happy with her car. And that's Dan Weldon she's following in, not Tony Kanaan. The green cars can be easily confused. And they're going to be...
Well, that's one of the reasons that she's going to come in. Even though she's running in 6th position, she's going to take the chance, come in, make some changes to the car, change the tires. We'll see. She can still do well.
You know, Larry, she's not going to lose a lap, though. She's the last car on the lead lap, so she truly had nothing to lose here.
No, she was not in last. She wasn't the last car on the lead lap, was she? She was next to the last car. She's going to be behind Scheckter.
Excuse me,
but still, she didn't have a lot to lose. And if she did improve the handling, I mean, if this set of tires is more to her liking, and when we say that, that just means sometimes one set of tires matches up better to the driver's liking than another, then she might be able to pass 2 or 3 cars and be in the top 5.
Well, we're going to see some more pit activity, I feel certain, Larry. Still a big question about who's going to pit here with just under 20 laps remaining, 206, 207 now at the stripe, laps in the books here. Great speculation on who's going to pit, who isn't. Safety vehicles now looks like they've just about cleared the track. We may go green here in just a minute. May not see any more stops.
We're not going to see any more pits. The guys, if you were going to pit, you would have been in now. When Danica came in, she came in. Thomas Scheckter came in too, and she's still in 6th place, so she's exactly where she was before. But the first 5, nobody in the top 5 pitted, all 5 of them counting on the fact that they can make it to the end. So and there you see Alio's car is being pushed back to the hauler, be loaded up. His day is finished, so tough break for him. I know the points chase have really hurt his points chase capabilities.
And the starter showing the field 1 lap to go to the restart, Larry. Now this is going to boil down to just what it should be here at a historic racetrack in Wisconsin. Who's got the fastest car?
Yep.
You've got, I would say, 4 contenders. Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti, Dario Franchitti, Sam Hornish have all shown to be fast enough to win it. Now we're just going to see who's got it.
And the first 5 cars are in line. There's no lap cars in the mix. So you don't have to, there's nobody to blame it on. You can either get around them or you can't.
Remember what a bad restart Tony Kanaan got the last time? He's really got to be on his toes, Larry, to make sure that doesn't happen again.
That's right. He has a restart like that again this time. and it could be bad. Oh, he's going to get on the throttle way early this time. That's way before the cone where they're supposed to get on the throttle, but he wasn't taking any chances of getting jumped this time around.
16 laps now to go. Whoa, busy racing back in the pack. 3 wide, Larry.
Yeah, and that was Scheckter. He just went around Danica Patrick, so that was the battle for 6th place. But here comes Hornish.
He's easily going to slip into 3rd here. Dario Franchitti has no choice but to fall in behind him. Here comes Hornish. 15 to go, Larry.
This is what we said. Sam Hornish, the last 50 laps, look out. But after the start he had, and as poorly as he ran for the first half of this race, I mean, the first half, he was not even in the hunt. He wasn't even close. He went a lap down. But now he has battled his way back, and Andretti Green certainly like to win their very first race, but if they're going to win the first race of the year, they've got that Penske car right there to deal with.
Now, this was the complaint last year, all year, that in this scenario, Marco's car gets very wide to hold Hornish back to keep him from getting to the leader, his teammate.
Well, there wasn't any choice right there. I mean, he just blew him away. I mean, he went to the inside. Marco moved down the racetrack a little bit, but Hornish right now appears to be way faster than anybody except maybe Tony Kanaan. I don't think he's going to do that to Tony Kanaan.
Well, Kanaan, look at that lead he's pulled off to nearly half a straightaway.
Wow, only 12 more laps as they cross the line this time. And Kanaan does have a 1.5 second lead. We'll watch closely and see how quickly he can close down on him. But I can guarantee you both of those guys right now standing up in the seat, pushing that pedal as hard as it'll go coming off the corner.
That was a fairly long yellow, Larry, about 13 laps. Can they now go to full rich conditions and race, or is there still that danger of running out of fuel?
You can bet that Tony Kanaan's got it on full rich. He's got it on full fast no matter what, because he's either going to win this race, end up in the wall, or end up out of fuel. There's not going to be any other scenario for him. He wants to win this race. He thinks he needs it to win this race very badly. And look at this. Thomas Scheckter has come up, and he's just now going around Dario Franchitti.
That was for 4th place, Larry. Great late race run for Thomas Scheckter and the Vision Racing team.
Remember, he pulled in and got new tires that might have made enough of a difference for him. There were only 6 cars on the lead lap, 7 cars on the lead lap. He was 7th at the restart, and he's already moved up past 2 people.
Now, his next car to catch is Marco Andretti here, as we see that's Dario Franchitti and Brian Herta. There's your leader, Tony Kanaan, the 7-11 car.
So what looked like a 1, 2, 3, 4 finish for Team Green is quickly turning into something else. As look at Marco as he moves way down on the racetrack. And look at Scheckter on the new tires. He just blew by him.
Just stuck to the bottom. Boy, what a great pass. Scheckter is a great deal faster right now than perhaps even Hornish.
Great call by Larry Curry to bring him in and to get those new tires, as he is really on the march.
8 laps to go, Larry. Time running out. Sam Hornish now 2.5 seconds behind almost.
Yep. I think Kanaan right now he's stretching that lead. So for the first time this year, you never say it's over till it's over, but Hornish is not closing in on him. And Tony Kanaan, who has looked terrific all day long, looks no less terrific right now.
The question becomes, can Scheckter catch Hornish? This last lap, Larry, Scheckter went around this racetrack at 163.8. Hornish's speed was 158.2. He is significantly faster than Hornish, but can he catch him?
Well, I don't know. Hornish would, I think after the day he's had, he would be extremely happy to come home in 2nd place. I mean, falling a lap down, getting that lap back, again, great strategy on Team Penske's part just to put him in the hunt at this point. Obviously, Marco and Franchitti's cars have fallen way off as far as speed goes near the end. But Kanaan, as he's done all day on used tires, that car has been very quick.
Thomas Scheckter has closed to within 1 second, Larry, of Sam Hornish.
5 laps to go, so we'll see if Thomas Scheckter can do it. And look at this. Danica also with new tires, really flying right now. She goes around Franchitti.
Given the situation last week at Nashville, that was a nice clean pass. No issues of blocking there.
I bet she liked that. And Marco's not that far ahead of her. Danica Patrick has a chance to finish 4th again, which would tie her best finish ever.
Now here comes Scheckter. He's just about caught Hornish. Right here he is, Larry. They come down the straightaway with 3 laps to go. Here comes Scheckter for second.
Well, a second-place finish for Thomas Scheckter would be a huge victory for this team. They have struggled all year long. They've had some good results. They've had some good runs. But to run second to Tony Kanaan here would be almost as good as a win for Vision Racing at this point in the season.
Larry, he missed the corner just a moment ago, going down into 1. He was just a shade wide, and it cost him a lot of momentum. That may have been the difference.
Cost him a lot of momentum, and he may not be able to do that. But even a 3rd-place finish for Thomas Scheckter at this point is going to be an extremely good result for those guys as they have struggled all year long.
Tony Kanaan should see the white flag coming up here. 1 lap to go coming up. White flag is out. There's the race for second. There's Tony Kanaan now negotiating turns 1 and 2. On the radio they're telling him there's nobody there. There's nobody there. Just be conservative and finish this race.
Yeah, they don't want him making any mistakes at this point, and obviously he's such a good race driver that's not going to happen. Look at this.
Here he comes. Tony Kanaan is your winner.
Dual checkered flags. First victory of the year for Andretti Green and Tony Kanaan. He's going to be a very happy guy. Hornish comes in second. Schecter's in third. And Danica Patrick pulls off a pass on the last lap and ends up in 4th position. And I think that's that 4th position is probably the best she's had. I mean, she passed a lot of cars there at the end, and she's going to be very happy with that.
Well, Michael Andretti's got to be a happy team owner. Let's try to get downstairs and see if we can get a word with Michael. They're wishing the winner Tony Kanaan. Well, that was Dario Franchitti. Now Tony Kanaan. Hopefully he's got enough fuel, Larry, to get to victory lane.
Yeah, he's going to go up here. He's a happy guy, and Franchitti's happy that his teammate won. This is a very close team, always has been. You know, you got to feel great for him. After all the problems that they've had, he's going to do the old donuts. He's got enough fuel left for that. Oh, he did. He hit the wall. Backed out winging there a little bit, but who cares at this point? Well, I don't know who started that tradition, but he sure made it hard on engines and tires and suspension pieces for these guys.
I think that might have been Alex Zanardi that did that. And
the crowd loved it, though.
Well, I think that you cannot fault Tony Kanaan ever. I mean, he's a good, consummate professional, heck of a race driver, but he's got that leadership ability that you talked about, even after a tough upbringing and, not a lot of privilege in his young years, that, he's earned everything he's getting. So
he did a terrific job. I mean, all day long. Right at the start, he moved up into 2nd place from back in the 3rd row, or 2nd row. He did a terrific job all day long, and near the end of every run was when he really shined. That's when he passed Castroneves at about the 60-lap mark. That's when he took the lead after Franchitti got around him. Near the end of the run, and he knew that's what he had to do. Exactly what he had to do to win this race, and he played it out perfectly and brought it home a victory. We're going to go down and talk to Sam Hornish and see what he thought about his day. It was a tough day, but he brought it home in 2nd place and retained the points lead, and that was his goal going into today.
Well, momentarily we'll hear from Sam Hornish. 2nd 5 were Dario Franchitti, Brian Herta, Dan Weldon, Jeff Simmons, and Scott Dixon, Larry. As we're pending to go downstairs and try to get a word with Sam Hornish, a hard-fought 2nd place that really helps him in the points. Hopefully that'll be something he'll talk about just a little bit when we're able to hear from him. And let's go downstairs.
And a big cheer for 27-year-old Sam Hornish, who climbs out of his car. His mom is from the Milwaukee area. A lot of local fans and family coming by. And Sam, take us to that restart with 17 to go. I mean, a phenomenal effort as you dispensed very quickly with Franchitti and Marco and began the hunt for Tony Kanaan.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty quick, and we wore out our tires a little bit coming back to the field. We had a pit stop where we came in behind a couple other guys, and they slowed us down, and then we lost the lap. So then we had to monkey around with fuel strategy and whatnot to be able to get back on the lead lap. But, burn up our tires trying to get back up to 4th. And then once we got there, the yellow came out, and Man, it was a heck of a race there. You know, the Marble Team Penske guys, they stayed behind me all day long. We had a good strategy. Everything worked out real well, and I can't complain at all. You know, second place finish. We had a good day when a lot of other guys didn't fare so well, so maybe we made up a little bit for Nashville, but we'll have to go on to Michigan and see if we can get a win there.
You got close to Kanaan, and we heard you had a vibration. What was that?
I'm not really sure what happened. Just the car was really good. And then on the last restart, you know, we had a vibration. Not sure where it came from. If we knocked off a wheel weight or if we picked something up on the tires. But it was a slick track out there today, and it was tough going. But the tires were real good and everything. You know, we just kind of just stayed there and hung around, and they looked pretty bad. Things looked pretty bad for a little while, but really turned out pretty good in the end.
All right, points leader Sam Hornish finishes second. Let's go to victory lane where Jamie Little is standing by with a very excited Brazilian.
Oh, Dr. Punch, it's the first time we've seen a color other than red and white in Victory Circle this year. It's the green car of Tony Kanaan. And it's been over a year since we have seen you in Victory Circle. You see him hugging Marco Andretti. It was these two down to the wire. Tony, take us through what this win means for you and your team.
It looks like we won the championship here. I think I was happier today than I was in the end of 2004. So, this proves that the IPS program that we have work. I got to thank Jaime for all the tests, and Jonathan Klein and Dario that they came here with Marco, and they did a great job. And I had a great battle with Marco, and my heart was in my throat at that time because apart that he's my teammate, he's my son's boss, so I couldn't take him out, but. It was great. Very happy. I mean, we needed that. We needed that so bad. So we got one. So let's look for another one.
Tony, you guys absolutely dominated the AGR guys the last 2 years. Tony, how difficult has this year been to keep everybody's spirits up and keep the team in this, believing in you that you could win?
Well, this is the key. I mean, look at this, guys. We win together, we lose together. So I believe this team, it's mentally stronger than when we won the championship the last 2 years. This team is more together, and that shows a lot of teamwork. So, we love it. We love each other. We hate each other, and then that's the way it is. Right now, we definitely love each other.
They're definitely loving each other. Tony Kanaan back in Victory Circle.
All right, out on pit road, Danica Patrick has climbed out of her Rahal Letterman machine. Back-to-back fourth-place finishes. Danica, how in the world did you take a car that was such a handful in qualifying and make it so good on race day?
Well, see, Jamie Little told me before the race that I have made up the most amount of spots of anyone in the series. So I just thought I'd qualify back there so I could make more and keep that record. For
good strategy, by the way.
No, it's unfortunately we had a bad qualifying, and as I was saying earlier to someone, it's not always the best to be up front because you're forced into sort of a safer strategy where when you're in the back and like I was kind of at the end of the lead lap or actually a lap down at one point, you can gamble a little bit more with the strategy, and that's what we did, and it worked.
What's happening now the last couple of weeks with this Rahal Letterman team starting to really come together? Your teammate Simmons running well, back-to-back top tens. What's been the difference?
Well, I think the difference is that we're finally able to go back to the shop, get things under control. We're not running around the country, I'm staying home in the Midwest because all the races are so close, and the guys are just settling in, and then we're not dealing with making sure that I fit right in the car or making sure that everything's on and secured tightly. Those are the things you worry about with the new car, where now we're just like, the car's good, let's make it fast, and I think that me and my engineer Ray are working hard, and we're kind of figuring out what we need and figuring out this car.
Good chemistry, good finishes. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Jack?
Well, Jerry, this guy's waited a long time to be in the podium. Congratulations, Thomas Schechter. Vision Racing has arrived.
Yeah, I got to thank everybody, all the owners, Tony, Laura, Patrick, Rock Republic for being on associate sponsor. It's great for everybody in the team. We definitely need this for morale for everybody, and everybody did a great job today.
I said you smelt the blood in the water when you saw that Sam Hornish was within your sights there. How bad did you want that spot?
Oh, man, I was trying to hide. I was sideways. I was doing everything I could, and I needed another 2 laps, but he's so good using his mirrors. He knew where I was going, and if I try to go high, he went back up again. So
we're taking a look at your climb up the ladder here. Was it as difficult as it looked?
It was tough, and I pushed very hard. I almost probably upset a couple people diving them so hard, but my tires were good and I was getting by and I wanted to go to the front. So just everybody at Vision Racing, thanks a lot.
Hey, Jamie.
Thanks, Jack. Everybody's congratulating each other down here. Marco Andretti, we talked about him the entire race. Marco, we thought for a second, for a few laps there, that you were going to be the third Andretti in victory circle, but take us through your race.
Well, it was definitely an eventful one. The NYC car was definitely hooked up in the middle of the race, and we sort of did a short fill to try to get track position, which we did, but when you do that, what do you expect? That means you're just going to be conserving the last stint, but that's what we had to do, and the car sort of went out of balance a little bit, the closing laps, but we hung on for a good finish. I gotta congratulate Tony. He did an awesome job. He was hooked up all day.
We heard you on the radio. It seemed like you were a bit surprised when he actually charged up on you and made the pass for the lead.
Yeah, it's just, the thing is there's no stopping him, when a car like that, he was definitely hooked up, and you saw where he went after he got by me, that showed he was a lot quicker.
Well, congratulations on a good run today. The third top 5 finish for Marco Andretti.
Larry, we've shuffled the deck a little bit today, didn't we? Tony Kanaan winning, Sam Hornish second, Thomas Scheckter third with a great late race surge. Danica Patrick, Marco Andretti moving into the top 5 there late. Great finish, great race on this historic oval. We'll be back to talk about a little bit more as we've got a few more minutes here, but what a great finish, as always. We talked earlier about the point race. Sam Hornish in a little better shape now, comes in now holding a 25-point advantage. Scott Dixon, I have to feel, actually came out of this better than I thought he would, given that they struggled so much today.
Yeah, but it's amazing to think that Sam Hornish, after crashing last week and looked like he might have put himself in jeopardy, now has a 25-point lead over second place. Going into the day, remember, the top 4 were all within 16 points of each other. So he had a terrific day on that in that respect. Obviously, Castroneves was the guy that got hurt the worst with that contact and putting him out of the race.
And it's maybe too soon to speculate, but this could be a race where Scott Dixon maybe will look back and say, boy, we had an opportunity because Sam Hornish crashed last week and I won, but then we came to Milwaukee and it wasn't what we had hoped.
Yeah, this race has hurt their chances tremendously, I think. Now they're going to go on to Michigan and then Kentucky, and both Dixon and Weldon are really looking forward to running Infineon Raceway, the last road course on the schedule. Of course, a lot of these guys grew up on the road courses and looking forward to that, but that's the one place that Sam Hornish has struggled a little bit, is on the road courses, and that'll be their best chance to make up some sort of ground on him. But Michigan next week, a completely different kind of racetrack. 2 miles, wide open, flat out, 3 lanes wide. Again, you got to have the car set up right, but a lot of horsepower and a lot of flat foot racing at that racetrack.
Well, I would think too, Larry, that part of the issue here is that, as we talked earlier, that in the early season, the guys with the car were really trimmed out and set up well last year because they were a little less on horsepower. Now those teams that had the advantage perhaps last year have had to play catch up. I think they've caught up. Is that a fair assessment?
I think absolutely they've caught up, and I think the biggest thing that I see is that Rahal Letterman has done a terrific job. They did not run a Dallara until after the Indianapolis 500. For the first few races, they really struggled. I mean, there was a huge difference between that and their old cars. Now then, they've got those figured out. At least Danica and Jeff Simmons do. Buddy Rice still is struggling. He finished 11th today, and he was like 4 laps down, and that he has really struggled. He hasn't adapted nearly as well to that new car as everybody else has. So we're going to go down and see if we can get a word with Michael Andretti here, who's got to be a very happy guy after having his 4 cars run 1, 2, 3, 4 for a lot of the day and end up with first place and 5th place, 2 guys in the top 5, and Franchitti in 6th.
This has got to be a track Michael's been coming to since he was a small child, because his dad raced here, back in the early and mid 60s.
Oh yeah.
And so we'll go downstairs and see what Michael has to say.
That's right, Michael Andretti back in victory lane now for the first time in over a year. He wears multiple hats here on race weekend. He owns 4 cars, and one of those happens to be his son, Marco Andretti. I know you were standing in Marco's pit today. I can't imagine the range of emotions. One of your cars is out front, your son's in second, back and forth. What are those emotions?
It's tough to describe, really, but I'm just very proud of the job Marco did and has done all year, and he was in contention right up to the end, and really proud of Tony. He's been our go-to guy since the beginning of this team, Andretti Green Racing, and he comes out and pulls it off again for us. I'm so happy for him and the whole 7-Eleven crew. They did a great job.
Michael, you and your father combined won here 9 times. What kind of advice did you offer to your son, Marco, who raced here for the first time?
Not a lot. I mean, he knows what he needs to do. There's not a lot I could tell him, just things that I look for in a race car and stuff like that, and, try to get him to look at it in the same way, and I think he did. I think the whole team actually has a good handle on that and at this place, and, so his teammates helped him out, and he did his part.
Congratulations, Jack. It was a great weekend for Andretti Green Racing. They swept. They actually won the Indy Pro race yesterday and then came back and won here today.
Yeah, but it was as good as it was for them, for his former team member, Dan Weldon. It was a long, long day for the Fujifilm Special. Tell me a little bit about the handful that you wrestled all day.
Well, I think obviously, at Target Chip Ganassi Racing, everybody still works very hard. We had a difficult day, and sure, we didn't perform, but it doesn't take away from the effort these guys put in. It's a very difficult track, and for whatever reason this weekend we were just a little bit off, and it's the first time I've had this in about 2 or 3 years, so it's not a nice feeling, and I think everybody is going to work hard enough so we don't have one again, but it's still a sensible result from a point standpoint, and obviously Honda did a good job for us again, which is always good. So I can't wait to Michigan. I wish it was tomorrow.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Michigan and how it could come in and play a major role in the final outcome of the points. You go there, and what do you see as a strong suit for Target Chip Ganassi's operation?
I think I've just got to go and do my normal thing. And Cornish, he's a very good competitor. I have immense respect for him, but now he has to think about the championship where I don't. So I'm still 4th.
Will you play some mind games with him? I know guys do that when they're chasing someone down.
No, I mean, it's very simple for me. I just have to win at all costs if I want any chance of winning the championship, and that's what I'm going to have to do.
Well, he made that a pretty simple statement. I just have to win at all costs and win every race from here on out. With that, he might beat Sam Hornish. Otherwise, probably not going to happen.
Well, Larry, we'll be back 1 week from today at Michigan, that big, fast super speedway up there. What are we going to see different?
Well, we're going to see them flat out, side by side and flat out around that racetrack. Next week at Michigan International Raceway, completely different than this place, but a very good place for IndyCar racing.
Well, the series really has been very, very competitive, and today was another indication. So we'll go to Michigan thinking we're going to see a great race and lots of intrigue, lots of great competition. That's what this series is all about. Today certainly didn't disappoint.
No, it certainly did. This was a great race here today. Pretty disappointing for a guy like Elio Castroneves, but for the most part, this is what the people came to see here at the Milwaukee Mile.
Well, this has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, produced in association with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Tony Kanaan is your winner. We'll see you next week in Michigan. I'm Dave Argabright. We're looking for Gary Lee back soon. Alongside me, Larry Rice. Good to see you again, Larry, and we'll see everybody at Michigan. So long, everyone.